So what can you do? As I discussed at the beginning, you can identify a need. So everybody's got a need for it, but you need to identify that need. You can raise the relevant key issues. Document the objective. This is sounding very familiar to what this accountant was talking to me about last night. Document the objectives. Gather the relevant data. And project manage the outcomes and the solutions. And obviously, if you go as far as giving legal advice and actually doing the documents, then you have gone too far. But that is fundamentally it. I'm not actually here, I don't have any revelations, I'm afraid, about what's involved in this. But that is fundamentally it, and it's very similar to all the other aspects of your practice that you've already got happening. So I'm going to go through each of these things and talk about how we've seen people effectively put this sort of process in place. There's a lot of frustration about the theory, and I know a lot of you might have gone to, spend a lot of money educating yourselves about estate planning, and probably scared the bejeebers out of yourself. Because you go, there's a lot of law in this, there's a lot of tax, there's a lot of superannuation, there's a lot of asset protection, it spans a very long period of time that we're talking about here, and it can become, this is just all too hard. So the good news, and this is really fundamentally it, this is what I'm here to say, is you don't need the answers. And that sounds crazy, but it actually works. You don't need the answers. But the bad news is you do have to understand the key issues, and you have to set the client's expectations that you might not have the answers, but you're going to take them through and create a demand and an awareness of the issues that they need to solve, and then offer them the service of finding the solutions. In fact, not having the solutions at the time you raise the issues with clients, that's how you get value. Because you're not saying this is the issue and this is the answer, and they go, that's great, and then you send them a bill and they say, what's the bill about? It's actually pausing at the issues and then offering the service of project managing the answers and the outcomes, and having the discipline to pause at the issues. And that's the people who I've seen make this work in their practice and actually make money out of it, follow that discipline. It's also good news because you don't actually have to become an expert on all the multidisciplinary areas that you actually need to make this work. So we've raised the issues. The next key thing is documenting what the client wants, writing it down. And this is what you're getting paid for, hopefully, at this stage. And it's a plain English summary of the client's concerns and their objectives. So when you go and when a lot of people do estate planning as lawyers, the client comes in and they've got the fact find out, they're going, what's your name, how do I spell the middle name of your children, what do you want to do, blah, 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 and it's all being put down. And then often the next thing the client gets is a will that they can't understand. And then the trusted advisor or the accountant or financial planner, whoever it might be, tries to explain it to them, and they're a bit, they're not simple documents, even ones that are written in plain English. But that's putting the cart before the horse. By documenting the concerns of the client, by documenting their objectives in plain English so the client can understand it before you got to the stage of trying to implement it, you put the client in their best possible position. Because the first thing is, people say, well, how do I know the lawyer knows what they're doing? Well, to some degree, if you've documented their concerns and you've put their objectives down in clear, plain English and the client signed off on it and you give that to a lawyer, the first thing the lawyer's going to say is, if I don't know what I'm doing, I'm actually going to put my hand up at that stage. Because the client says they're concerned about wealth preservation, they're concerned about the fact that the kid's going to get $2 million when they turn 18 if I die and get a life insurance payment. And I don't know what to do about that. I don't know how to solve that problem. So it's part of the due diligence process on the advisors that you're working with. By having that document up front, you're keeping everybody honest. And you've created value for the client by putting them in a position of strength as far as achieving their outcome. Also on the other side, if a lawyer receives a document that has the concerns there, and it has their client's objectives, and it also has the data that they need to prepare the documents and to actually answer those questions, then two things should happen. One is the lawyer should be more efficient, and secondly, they should be able to give you a fixed price up front to deliver those answers and those documents. And if they can't, they're probably practicing in the wrong area. Because it's no longer how long's a piece of string, because the piece of string's been cut. So that is a huge value. And certainly the advisors that we work with that follow this approach, we can deliver those documents and the answers and the solutions to those problems at a price that reflects the fact that they're involved in this process. So you start to get around that problem of doubling up, you sitting in the lawyer's office while the lawyer asks your client how to spell the middle name of the child and asks about the structure. Because it's a waste of time. First of all, the client doesn't want to be there. And they don't want to go through this sort of data replication and multiple relationships with different advisors. So the next key component is the data. So you want to be the central repository of that data. And you want to work constructively with other people to fill in any gaps that might be missing and know what those gaps are. And the easy way to do that is go on the internet and download 4 or 5 fact finds for often lawyers' websites to start with. It'll give you a good indication. And you might have your data spread around various, your contact database, your Xplan thing or your client management system, tax returns, ASIC database, all of those things. There's data spread around the place. So bring that together. When some of the clients we work with, we go there for an estate planning matter and they'll email before we get there and I'll have the ASIC printouts of all the companies. I'll have the trust deed, I'll have the super fund deed, I'll have, as I say, all the names of the kids. We'll have maybe a couple of past tax returns, past financial accounts. So when I get there, you know what I'm doing? I'm talking about solving the client's problems, not doing stuff that you've already done. And I'm thinking about what documents are necessary, and I already know before I turn up at the meeting what it's going to cost the client. So the estate organiser, use the instruction sheets, and include the soft data. So it's not just about names and addresses and companies and trusts. What are the client's concerns? What do they want for their children? What keeps them up at night? Take that opportunity through this process to engage with them emotionally and then manage and control that process around that data. So finally, in the process, we're talking about project managing the outcomes. In order to do that, you need to get paid because it does take time. And you need to set that expectation up front. As I say, after you've raised the key issues, and we'll talk about the key issues shortly, and you've got that sense of urgency, and you've got that, people wanting an answer, a solution, it's at that time where you say, this is what it's going to cost for me to make it happen. And I'll just sort of go off on a bit of a tangent here about the concept of a trusted advisor. My view about a trusted advisor is the person who understands their client's laziness the best and takes responsibility for it, puts themselves in a position where they're saying, I'll make this happen. Most clients, once you get it we're all busy. So the opportunity to put yourself in the position of project managing this, people will pay for it, provided that you've raised those issues and you've got that buy-in. It's not just you need a will or you need to update your will. That's not going to get you there. And you need to remain in control of the process. And you do that by getting the client's authority. You don't delegate responsibility. You don't say, go and see your lawyer and get a copy of your trustee. Go and see your accountant and get the last accounts. Go and see your financial planner and get the last report on the assets. If you want to be in that role, take authority from the client to do that for them. So don't delegate and then, oh, it's done. Actually take authority, take responsibility for it. And understand and manage pricing. And this is a key thing. You need to do a little bit of work up front, a bit of due diligence on the other people that you need to work with, so that you can communicate with the client a pricing expectation. So that you're not saying, oh, I'll throw you over the fence to the lawyer, and then the client comes back or actually doesn't come back because they're so offended that you've let them loose in this room with this person who either can't quote or quote something ridiculous that they weren't expecting because you hadn't positioned it. And another key thing about where we've seen this work well, and I'll touch on this a little bit more later, is the use of an internal expert, which this sort of developed out of a relationship that we have with a financial practice planning practice in Adelaide, where they had this guy who was sort of the central go-to person within their practice for making estate planning work, and it's really blossomed within their practice. And if you ask me what was it that made that difference, it was the fact that they had concentrated expertise in this one person rather than sending everybody off. And stick to a simple but tight time frame. So that's sort of an overview of the process. There's perhaps a little bit more detail in it, and I've put together a paper on this, and it's sort of, if, to the extent that you're interested, we can go through it at some other stage. But in the preparation side, you need to understand what the key issues are. Understand the client categories, we're going to talk about these things, and segment your client base. The next is the client engagement phase. This is where you create that burning need for a solution really quickly before they go on holiday, or whatever it might be that's driving that. So by raising the key issues with the client and documenting what they want. And then in the background, you need to have your data systems in control, and you need to have identified your team and done your due diligence on the other people. So that's just sort of a more detailed explanation of those steps that I've just gone through. But this is really the formula. It's the key issues and the right client. So when my friend said last night, don't you just raise the relevant issues and then just document, when he said just raise the relevant issues, that really is the key thing, because there are a limited number of issues, which is great news, but only certain issues are going to create a demand from certain types of clients. So what are the key issues first?